welcome back. This is Miss Debbie at Cox ESP. Let's continue on our last part, not a chapter, but it's part 14. So here we go. If you will all come to the store with us, we'll give you each a thing to carry home, Mrs. Dinky smiled at them. Come on. I'll stay here with Mama and Percival, the kind storekeeper said, and maybe beloved Belinda and Uncle Clem will return with you and show you where the store is. Indeed we will, Uncle Clem and beloved Belinda agreed together. And maybe Percival would like to come with us. I'd like to see the magic store, Daddy, Percival said. I was a pig too long. I almost forgot about toys and everything. My dear boy, I forgot that, said Dad. I felt certain the Dinkies will be glad to give you some toys. Oh, we would indeed, Mrs. Dinky said. The storekeeper looked at Percival's Mama and asked, What do you say, Mama? Do you feel like riding over to see the Dinkies' new magic store? I'd like to go, Daddy. Then it's settled, the storekeeper said. Hop into my car and we'll go right over there. Everything in the store was just as the storekeeper had left it, except there was a new can of ice cream cones right under the counter. Mr. and Mrs. Dinky were delighted with it, and Percival and his Mama thought it was the loveliest store they'd ever seen. I am almost sorry you don't own it, laughed Percival's Mama. Why? You may have it if you wish, spoke up both Mr. and Mrs. Dinky. Oh, no, sir, thank you just the same. And here is a picture of the storekeeper, Percival, and Uncle Clem, and Mr. and Mrs. Splinter. They're all going over, the Dinkies, I mean. They're all going over to the new store that the Dinkies are owning now. Okay, let's turn the page here. He shook his head. The store belongs to you now. I never will go back on my word. Percival and his Mama seemed so disappointed. Beloved Belinda hastened to suggest while Mr. Dinky served the ice cream cones. Why don't you own a magic store together? Then you could all have fun giving jolly things away. Hooray, said beloved Belinda. Mrs. Dinky cried. That's just what we'll do. Even Uncle Clem and beloved Belinda own equal shares with the rest of us. It'll be agreed that each of the friends should have an equal share with the magic store and give out as many things as he wished. Then it occurred to Uncle Clem that the little house in the back of the store would not be large enough for the storekeeper and his family, and the Dinkies too. But wouldn't it be nice if the store were near a home of the orphan children in the center of the woods, he asked. Oh, I wish it were there, the storekeeper said. That was one trouble with it. So few people come to the store and it gets lonesome here. Let's sit around the counter and eat our ice cream cones, Uncle Clem said. I want to see if I can make a real large wish. Remember, he has that bean in his hat. Oh dear, Uncle Clem cried at a moment of waiting. It didn't work. I'm so disappointed. What do you mean, Uncle Clem? Mrs. Dinky said. Well, I wish for the store to be near the orphan children's home, and it's still right here. We would have felt it move through the air if it had moved at all. Just then the front door opened and in walked Wooden Willie and the wooden man and woman, Mr. and Mrs. Splinter. Why, Wooden Willie, beloved Belinda and Uncle Clem came running to hug the wooden boy. How did you walk way down here? Way down here? Wooden Willie questioned in return. This isn't way down here. It's right here. And with a giggle, Wooden Willie pulled beloved Belinda and Uncle Clem to the door and showed him that the home of the orphan children was just a short distance. Then everybody was pleased and asked Wooden Willie if he would run over and tell the orphan children and the little old lady to come to the store and get whatever they wished. So look, his magic bean really did work for something really large, like moving the store over to the closer to the orphan's house. Wooden Willie His wooden feet thumped on the ground as he hurried to do the errand. In a short time, the store was filled with happy shouts and laughter of the orphan children. To them, the magic store was like Christmas morning, toys everywhere to choose from, and all their very own. When the joy was at its height, Uncle Clem put his hand to his hat. "What is it, Uncle Clem?" the storekeeper said. "The magic bean Eddie Elf gave me is becoming very strange." Uncle Clem replied, "It's dancing around in my hat." "Maybe you strained it when you wished for the store to be moved," Percival's mommy suggested. "I don't believe so," Uncle Clem said, "for I have wished for others since, see?" And he led them out the back door. There stood 2 new houses. Ooh, he did really make a large request after that. There was 2 large houses, one for the storekeeper and his family and one for the Dinkies. My! Everybody laughed, but Uncle Clem still held his hand to his hat and said, "I must find out why the magic bean is so unsettled." For at that moment, Uncle Clem seemed to be listening, and then he turned to beloved Belinda and he said, "I wish I know what had made that magic bean dance in my hat." And immediately he saw Eddie Elf in his home motioning for with his little finger. "Eddie Elf must have a good reason, or he wouldn't have called me back." So Uncle Clem shook hands with everybody, and everybody shook hands with beloved Belinda, and the storekeeper wiped his eyes from the back of his hand and tried to smile with a large lump that came to his throat. He could scarcely say goodbye. Then Uncle Clem and beloved Belinda said goodbye to the last one, and they disappeared out of sight. "Ah," the storekeeper said in a moment, "my 2 dear friends have left us. To them we owe our present happiness. Wherever they may be, we'll feel their love and friendship as they'll reach out to us." So see, that magic bean transported them back to Eddie Elf's house. Scarcely a second passed the time Uncle Clem and beloved Belinda stood there in the magic store, and the time they found themselves in the home of Eddie Elf. "I was afraid you would not get my message," Eddie Elf said. "Marcella is almost home, and you've got no time to lose." Uncle Clem took the magic bean from his hat. "If you only knew all the fun we had," Uncle Clem said, handing the bean to Eddie. "How can we ever thank you?" "Don't," Eddie Elf said aloud. "I know everything you did, and I know how much pleasure you had, and for I know how generous and kind you have been. And when one is considerate of happiness of others, he always creates happiness and sunniness in his own mind and heart." Eddie Elf waved his little glass-like wand towards Uncle Clem and beloved Belinda, and in a twinkling they found themselves tucked in their beds in the nursery. They had heard the steps fall on the stairs. "What nice children you have been," Marcella said. Remember, Marcella's the little girl that owns them, and she put them in their beds, and she went to town with her mother. Well, now she's back. "You haven't moved since I tucked you snugly in your beds." She picked up Uncle Clem and beloved Belinda and hugged them so tight. It was so hard to hug that the little rag stomachs almost touched the rag backs of them. Uncle Clem looked, and beloved Belinda wiggled one shoe button eye, and beloved Belinda wiggled a button eye at Uncle Clem, and the wonderful adventure had ended. But a new one of happiness was just beginning. The end. And look, here's a picture of Eddie Elf waving his glass wand to bring them back to their little beds. This is the end of the story. I'm so happy. I hope you enjoyed the story. I sure did. So I'll see you another time. Bye-bye.